food that has, water component to it, your body kind of preserves that. So it helps maintain water balance. Kidneys also can assist in gluconeogenesis. Does anybody know what that is?
Gluconeogenesis,
the new creation of glucose. Okay, so the kidneys can help create glucose during prolonged periods of fasting from non-carbohydrate products. So this would be if your glycogen stores are depleted, okay, and you needed to create glucose, you would be able to, through gluconeogenesis, the kidneys would be able to produce glucose from non-carbohydrate products, so from proteins and things of that nature. Kidneys also produce the enzyme renin, which helps regulate blood pressure and kidney function, and then also responsible for metabolizing vitamin D to its active form. Obviously, we are focusing on the excretory function as well as regulating the volume. Okay, so that's what we're going to focus on. Kidney location: the kidneys lie in the retroperitoneal position in the superior lumbar region. Okay, they lie behind the parietal peritoneum. And against the deep muscles at the back. Okay. The upper border of the kidneys are at the level of the 12th thoracic vertebrae, and the lower is at the level of the 3rd lumbar vertebrae. Okay. Connective tissue and adipose tissue surround the kidneys for what? Protection. They help. The connective tissues help hold them in place. The adipose tissues are for protection. Okay, a lot of our organs are surrounded in that adipose tissue for protection. You don't want to take a blow to the kidney. Okay, that's going to be a problem. So there is protection mechanisms there. Left kidney is positioned higher than the right kidney, okay, because the right kidney is crowded by the liver. So they are at a little bit different levels. The left kidney is approximately 1.5 to 2 centimeters higher. I mean, nothing drastically, but they are slightly off kilter there. Okay? So, we're going to start with the kidney. We're going to look at the kidney's anatomy. Externally, the kidney is a reddish brown. It's a bean-shaped organ. It has a mass of approximately 5 ounces. Okay, so it's not super heavy. It has a smooth surface. We're talking 12 centimeters long, 6 centimeters wide, 3 centimeters thick. Okay, that's the approximate size. Obviously, it's going to vary within individuals. The lateral surface is convex, and the medial surface is concave with a vertical cleft. Renal hilus. What's the hilus? We talked about this before. What are yeah, where things enter and exit. Where did we talk about the hilus? The lymph. Yep, in the lymph nodes. Okay, so that's what we're referring to when we're talking about hilus. The renal hilus does lead into the internal space within the kidney. Okay. Ureters, renal blood vessels, lymphatics, and nerves join the kidneys at the hilus. So this is where we're talking about things are coming in, things are going out. Okay, that's where things are connected. Atop each kidney sits an adrenal gland, and the adrenal gland is what type of gland? Exocrine or endocrine? Endocrine. Okay, so atop each kidney we have the adrenal gland. Now, there are 3 layers of supportive tissue around each kidney. We have the renal capsule, an adipose capsule, and renal fascia. Okay, so the renal capsule is fibrous, transparent capsule that prevents infections from spreading to the kidneys. It basically surrounds the renal cortex, which we'll talk about, which is the outer layer of the kidney. Okay, adipose capsule, fatty mass that attaches the kidney to the posterior body wall. Talked about that a little bit. It's for protection. It also helps with connecting, keeping those kidneys in place. Okay, and then renal fascia is the outer layer of dense fibrous tissue that is responsible for anchoring that kidney. So it assists the adipose capsule in anchoring the kidney, as well as the adrenal glands to the surrounding structures, keeping everything in place. Okay, we don't want anything moving around. Internal anatomy of the kidney. This would be a good picture to know. Write that down somewhere. We have the cortex, we have the medulla, and we have the renal pelvis. So the renal cortex is the outer layer. Okay, we have 3 distinct layers here. The cortex, just as everything else we've talked about that is the cortex, it's the outer layer. So most superficial area, it is light in color and it is granule in appearance. Okay, so you can see the renal cortex would be this chunk here. This is what you're going to be able to identify. The renal medulla is the inner portion, okay, it's darker, more reddish-brown appearance. It exhibits a cone-shaped mass of tissues called renal pyramids. Okay, so the renal medulla is this section here, and you can see these are cone-shaped, these are renal pyramids, with all these pyramids. So this area here surrounding is the cortex, this area with the pyramid is the medulla. The base of the renal pyramids face the cortex. So the base is obviously the wider portion. The apex of the renal pyramid face internally. Triangle, little cone. Renal columns separate each pyramid. You can see those in between each one of those pyramids. And each pyramid constitutes a lobe. Okay, there are approximately 8 lobes per kidney. These are all just structural parts of the kidney. The renal pelvis is the flat funnel-shaped tube. It is continuous with the ureter that leaves the hillock. So the renal pelvis is this flat section here. Okay, this lighter colored section that connects with the ureter. Basically a funnel-shaped sac. Okay, it does have extensions from the major calyces. These major calyces that are subdivided into minor calyces. Okay. The calyces collect urine and they empty into the renal pelvis. So calyce is a cup-shaped area that encloses the renal pyramid apex. So you see all these apex lie in the center. This white area here where the pelvis kind of connects with the apex, that's the calyce. We have all these minor calyces coming off, and they come together to form the major calyce. Okay? So the urine's going to flow through the renal pelvis into the ureter. It's going to be transported to the bladder where it's going to be stored, at which point, when it reaches its threshold, obviously it's going to use that. Okay? These are under control of smooth muscles. Okay, calyces, pelvis contains smooth muscle. All right, kidney blood supply. We have renal arteries, we have veins. The arteries arise from the abdominal aorta. Okay, so they supply blood to the kidneys. Approximately 15 to 30% of cardiac output at rest. So 15 to 30% of the blood at rest is going to the kidneys. Okay. The renal arteries enter the kidney in the hillock. They branch into the interlobal arteries, which pass between the pyramids. And then at the junction of the medulla and the cortex, okay, the interlobal arteries branch, forming a series of arcuate arteries, which in turn give rise to cortical radiate arteries. The final branches of the cortical radiate arteries, they are afferent arterioles, and they lead to nephrons. Nephrons are the structural units of kidneys, which we're going to talk about. Okay, so the nephrons are basically the smallest portion of the kidneys, and that's where our filtration is going to occur. Okay. Renal veins, the blood returns through a series of vessels corresponding to the arterial pathways, so it's following that same path, and then they join the inferior vena cava, okay, as it goes to the abdominal cavity. All right, nephrons. So nephrons, as I said, they're the structural and functional unit of the kidneys. The renal pyramids are what contain the nephrons. There are over 1 million per kidney. There are lots of little nephrons in your kidneys. Okay, they are within the pyramids. These are what's responsible for processing the blood, filtering the blood, so they carry out the process to form urine. Okay. Each nephron has a renal corpuscle and a renal tubule. So if you branch, so you have all these nephrons that are in this pyramid. You take one out, you have the corpuscle here and the tubule. Okay, so the structure of a nephron would also be good to know. Some other function or structures here. The glomerulus is a tangled cluster of blood capillaries composing a renal corpuscle. Okay, so in this particular picture, and I'll have a better picture later, going deep in here, the blood capillaries that are in the corpuscle. Bless you. Okay, they filter fluid. That's their job. Okay, in the glomerulus, basically the capillaries filter fluid, and that's the first step in urine production. Glomerular capsule, sac-like structure that surrounds the glomerulus. Okay, so I mean that's pretty standard. Now, more complicated picture of a nephron. We have the renal tubule leads away from the glomerular capsule and coils into the proximal convoluted tubule. So if you look here, this is where things are getting filtered, and it's going to move away. This section here is the proximal convoluted tubule. Okay, it's moving away. The fluid's moving away. At that point. Okay. The proximal convoluted tubule dips towards the renal pelvis. So you have to think of this as being within one of those pyramids. Okay, so as I'm going through this, remember all these nephrons are in those pyramids. So you have to think about how it's shaped. Okay, and what part of the pyramid is facing the inside. The base and the apex. The apex. Okay, so visualize this as we're going through. So, the proximal convoluted tubule dips towards the renal pelvis, okay, so towards the inside of that pyramid, and it becomes the loop of Penlay, which is the loop here. Okay? The tubule is going to curve back upwards towards the renal corpuscle, so it's going away, and it's coming down around the tube, and it's going to curve back up, and it coils very tightly into the distal convoluted tubule.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yeah.
The loop of Henle is just when it goes down, goes up like that, make that little loop? That's all it is? Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay. This is the descending limb. This is called the descending limb.
Okay.
And so then you have the tube and then the ascending limb.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Now, the distal convoluted tubular from several nephrons. Remember, there's a million in a kidney, so there's obviously going to be lots within a pyramid. So, distal convoluted tubular from several nephrons merge into the renal cortex, and they form collecting ducts. So they're all going to drain into a collecting duct. And then the resulting tube empties into a minor callus, okay, through an opening in the renal apex. And then where's it going to go? Where do those calyces enter? Where? Urethral, right? I'll let her look. So I'm just going to... Okay, into a urethral. So this is, remember, we're talking about forming urine. Right? So these structures, understanding the flow, which way it goes, which direction it goes, is going to be beneficial. This is just a more detailed picture. All right, so blood supply of nephron. Now, obviously, if you look on your book, there's a picture on page 779 that kind of can help you follow along while I'm talking if you have your book with you. If not, just write 779 down and you can refer to it later. There's a cluster of capillaries that forms the glomerulus, and it arises from an afferent arteriole. Okay, afferent means what? Coming in or going away? Coming in, okay? After passing through the glomerular capillaries, the blood enters into the efferent arteriole, going away. Okay? The afferent arteriole branches into complex, really interconnected networks of capillaries. So that's the peritubular capillary system, and it surrounds the renal tubule. So, let's see that. Okay, peritubular capillary. So you have the afferent arterioles here that are coming down. Here are the capillaries. Okay, because as it's going away, then it's going to be in what? Vein. under low pressure. Okay, low pressure. After flowing through the capillary network, the blood rejoins the blood from other branches, and it enters the venous system of the kidneys. Okay, so this needs oxygen too. This is a process as well, correct? So we have to supply the nephrons with blood because they're responsible for filtering. Now, within the one of the main apparatuses of nephron is called the juxtaglomerular apparatus. Mouthful. Okay? Look right, page 777. There's a picture not on it. So at the end of the nephron loop, before it becomes the distal convoluted tubule, the ascending limb passes between afferent and efferent arterioles of its own glomerulus. Okay? So if you look, here's the glomerulus, right? Okay, here's our afferent arteriole. And here is an afferent arteriole. So the fluid going to pass through. And there's both of those there. Both of those arterioles are there. Okay? So this is near the end of the ascending limb of the loop. Passes between both an afferent and efferent arteriole. At the point of contact, the epithelial cells of the distal tubule are narrow and densely packed. Okay, this is of the ascending limb. And these cells form the macula densa. So if you can see it in the picture. The juxtaglomerular cells are large, smooth muscle cells in the walls of the arterioles near the glomerulus. So in the walls of the arterioles that near their attachments to the glomerulus are large, smooth muscle cells. So the juxtaglomerular apparatus is basically the cells of the macula densa and the cells of the juxtaglomerular cells, and they combine to play a role in renin secretion. What did we say renin does?
Helps with blood pressure.
Mm-hmm. What?
Doesn't it regulate the kidney function?
Yeah, regulates kidney function, helps with blood pressure. Okay? These are the basic structures that we should know about. Okay, right now we're just talking anatomy. We're not talking about physiology of it, we're just looking at the anatomy, the different parts of the nephron that you should be able to identify. Okay? Now, we're going to get into the physiology, so urine formation. How are we forming this? So the main function of the nephrons and the collecting ducts is to control the composition of the body fluids and remove waste from the body, correct? So the product of this, removing waste from the body, is urine. Okay, so if our final product is urine, basically, if you're looking at an equation, it's going to be the amount filtered by the glomerulus minus the amount reabsorbed, because some of it's reabsorbed, plus the amount re-secreted by the tubule, and then you're going to have urine. Okay, and we're going to go through each of these. So there's three main steps in the formation of urine. And when you add it all together, you get urine. Okay? So we're in three processes. Glomerular filtration. Basically, the glomerular capillaries filter the plasma. This is where they're filtering the blood. This is the first capillary bed in the glomerulus. This is the first step. Okay? The filtered fluid here is going to move into the renal tubule, and it's destined to be urine. We're producing about 180 liters of fluid daily. Okay? And that's average. That's like if you haven't had a ridiculous amount of fluid. Okay? Now, a lot of filtered fluid is moved back into the bloodstream. You can't pee out everything. That would be it. Okay? The second step, which we'll go through, is tubular reabsorption. So we move substances from the tubular fluid back into the blood. So we've kind of filtered some things out, and we are going to reabsorb some of them. We want them back. The kidneys selectively reclaim the amount of the substances, depending upon what the body's needs are at that moment. Okay? So some things we might reabsorb: water, electrolytes, glucose, depending on the status, okay, depending on your hydration status, your nutrition status, whatever, it's going to dictate what's going to be reabsorbed. The third step is tubular secretion. So now we're going to move substances from the blood within the peritubular capillary system into the renal tubule. We're going to get rid of things, again. Okay, so some substances the body must excrete are removed very quickly. Hydrogen ions, certain toxins, waste and substances that we have in excess that we need to get rid of. Okay, so we filter, then we reabsorb, then we secrete. Those are the three main steps. And the end product of those is urine. So we're going to go through each one of those processes. So we're going to start with the first step here, filtration. So urine formation begins when the water and certain substances filtered out of the glomerular capillaries and into the glomerular capsules. Okay, so we're in that kind of chunk section of that big bulge of the nephron. Okay? Tiny openings in the glomerular capillary walls make the capillaries very permeable. And then the glomerular capsule receives the resulting filter. Mainly water, some components of blood plasma, except for large protein molecules. Those are not going to be filtered through because they can't get through the tiny openings in the capillaries. Okay? So at this point, it's mainly water.
And what makes up the tiny openings?
Just like regular capillaries, it's the same thing, just the way the cells are put together. Very similar to the same types of capillaries that we talked about when we were talking about the respiratory system and gas exchange. So basically, with this filtrate, I said it is mostly water. We may have glucose, some amino acids, urea, uric acid, creatine, sodium, chloride, potassium, calcium bicarbonate. These are all things that could be in this filtrate. Okay, common substances found within this filtrate. Now, pressure, how does this happen? The main force that moves substances by filtration through the glomerular capillaries is hydrostatic pressure of blood. Okay? So we have afferent arterioles, they have large diameters which allow blood to enter the glomerular capillaries very easily. The afferent arterioles have narrow diameters. So they tend to back up the blood into the glomerular capillaries. The differences in diameters are going to do what to the blood pressure?
Increase or decrease?
It's going to raise it, right? Because there's a backup. So it's going to raise the blood pressure in the glomerular capillaries. So then the hydrostatic pressure of the blood forces the substances through the glomerular capillary wall because it wants to go to an area from high to low, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. The colloid osmotic pressure of plasma in the glomerulus and the hydrostatic pressure inside the glomerular capsule oppose the movement. So they influence glomerular filtration. An increase in either of the pressure reduces filtration. So if we increase the pressure, it actually reduces the filtration. We look at the net filtration pressure. So the net pressure forcing the substances out of the glomerulus. Normally it's always positive, which favors filtration. So basically when we're talking about net filtration pressure, we're talking about the force favoring filtration, which is the glomerular capillary hydrostatic pressure, minus, or if you want to look at it as an equation, minus the force that opposes filtration, which is the capsular hydrostatic pressure and the glomerular capillary osmotic pressure. The difference between those is usually always positive, so it usually favors filtration. Okay, but two of them oppose, one of them assists. So this is what I just said. You you normally have positive outward forces from hydrostatic pressure, negative, so an inward force from the colloid osmotic pressure, and negative capsular hydrostatic pressure. However, because these two negatives are not equal to or greater than the positive, you end up with positives, so you end up with filtration. Okay. Now, the rate at which this filtration occurs is called filtration rate. So it's most commonly measured index of kidney function, directly proportional to the net filtration pressure, GFR. Okay, that's what it's known as, GFR. So at rest, I said the kidneys receive anywhere from 15 to 30% of cardiac output, so I put 25% because they're just kind of in the middle. Okay, 20% of blood plasma is filtered as it flows through glomerular capillaries. Only 20% of the blood is filtered. Not 100%, 20%. Okay, so the GFR for nephrons is about 125 milliliters per minute, or about 180,000 milliliters in 24 hours. That's how much it's filtered. Okay. Only a small fraction of that is excreted as urine. Most of it is reabsorbed and re-enters the plasma. All plasma is filtered through the glomeruli approximately 60 times daily. Blocked. Okay, 60 times daily. Once again, most of it is reabsorbed. Could you imagine going to the bathroom 60 times in a day? You would not be able to do anything else. Okay, take up most of your time. And so the pressures are what affect this. Okay? So some examples of how different pressures affect this. Afferent arterial constriction decreases pressure, which in turn drops the filtration rate. Okay, because with afferent arterial constriction, blood flow decreases. So filtration pressure decreases, so filtration rate is going to drop. Efferent arterial constriction increases pressure, which in turn raises the filtration rate. So with efferent arterial constriction, blood backs up into the glomerulus, the filtration pressure increases, and then the filtration rate increases.
What's going to cause the afferent or the efferent arterial constriction?
Blood pressure can cause it depending on what you are doing at the time. You're exercising.
Okay.
I mean, most people, like when they exercise, you normally don't have to go to the bathroom because the itch kind of closes off those arteries. You don't want to send blood to the kidneys.
Okay.
Obviously, you're doing something at that point. If you were being chased down the road,
So is it basically
by, like, Mike Myers, blood is not going to go to your kidneys because urinating is probably not really helpful in that situation.
okay?
Okay? So there can be different, just depending upon physiologically what's going on, what systems are being used, where the blood's being deposited to.
Okay.
Okay? Kind of like when you exercise, the blood gets shut off to the digestive system. Blood is not needed there, it's needed elsewhere.
Okay.
And then there's some other examples. During filtration through the capillary wall, proteins remain in the plasma, and they raise colloid osmotic pressure. Why do proteins remain in?
They
They're
can't
too
take
big,
them.
okay, so they can't get through. And then as the pressure rises, filtration decreases there. Hydrostatic pressure in the capsule can change due to obstruction. Okay, you may have a stone in your ureter, that could cause pressure to change. Increased pressure then with hydrostatic pressure opposes the filtration rate. Okay, so then you get fluid back up. Now, regulation of the filtration rate. Usually filtration rate is constant. Glomerular filtration rate may increase when body fluids are in excess, and it may decrease when the body must conserve fluids. Okay, so let's say you've just taken a whole excess of fluid, then at that point, filtration rate may increase, okay? If you're dehydrated though, you know, then it's gonna decrease it, it's gonna try to conserve the fluid, okay? So really, it increases and decreases to maintain homeostasis. The homeostatic function, we need to put out a certain amount, and if we're over it, you know, we adapt accordingly. Now, the sympathetic nervous system can alter GFR, okay? If blood pressure or the volume drops, afferent arterioles vasoconstrict, decreasing GFR, so less urine forms when the body needs to conserve water. If blood pressure or volume rises, we will vasodilate, which is going to increase GFR. We can get rid of that excess fluid. Okay. Enzyme renin helps control the filtration rate. Okay. Juxtaglomerular cells secrete renin in response to 3 stimuli. And special cells and afferent arterioles sense a drop in blood pressure. Okay, sympathetic stimulation to the nervous system. And when macula densa senses a decreased number of chloride, potassium, and sodium ions, reaching the end of the ascending limb of the nephron. Basically, once in the blood, renin converts to angiotensin 1, and then it quickly converts to angiotensin 2. When it is angiotensin 2, it carries out the actions that help maintain sodium balance, water balance, and blood pressure. Okay, so vasoconstricts afferent arterioles, renin, or angiotensin vasoconstricts afferent arterioles, which is going to increase glomerular capillary hydrostatic pressure. Okay, the major effect on the kidneys secretes adrenal hormone aldosterone, and it stimulates tubular reabsorption of sodium. Okay, so that's what angiotensin also does. The heart also can secrete a hormone which can affect the filtration rate. It secretes when the blood volume increases, and then ANP increases sodium excretion by increasing the glomerular filtration rate. So that's the first process, is filtration. We have to create filtrate. The second is tubular reabsorption. So this is the process by which substances are transported out of the tubular fluid through epithelium of the renal tubule and into the interstitial fluid. So basically, we're returning things from the fluid back into the bloodstream. So whatever we just filtered, these are things that are coming from the filtrate that we want back. Okay. So the substances are transported out of the tubular fluid back into the interstitial fluid, into the bloodstream. The substances diffuse into the peritubular capillaries, which return substances to their internal environment. Epithelial cells that make up the renal tubules are in control of this process. And then in reabsorption, in this process, the substances first cross the membrane facing the inside of the tubule, and then they cross the cell membrane facing the interstitial fluid, which makes sense if you think of how it would go out through the tubule. Okay? Tubular reabsorption occurs throughout the renal tubule. However, the majority of reabsorption takes place in the proximal convoluted parts of the tubule. That would be good to know. Okay. The reason is because in this particular part of the tubular, epithelial cells have microvilli, which increases the surface area, so that enhances absorption. So you can have reabsorption along the entire tubular, but this is where it occurs the most. Now, basic rules for movements across the cell membrane apply for tubular reabsorption. So we have active transport, we have passive transport. So substance moving down the concentration gradient, right, from an area, what's the concentration gradient? High to low. So they have to be lipid soluble, or they have to have a carry molecule or a channel available. Why do they have to be lipid soluble? They're crossing what? The lipid bilayer of the cell membrane. Okay, so they either have to be lipid soluble, or there has to be a carrier for them or a channel for them to get through. Okay, Segments of the renal tubular are adapted to reabsorb specific substances. Okay, active transport reabsorbs glucose. Water is reabsorbed by osmosis. And then the epithelium of the proximal convoluted tubule, the area where most is reabsorbed, can reabsorb other substances. So creatine, lactic acid, uric acid, citric acid, basically anything that was in the filtrate, which I said all these before that constitute filtrate, can be reabsorbed depending upon the state of the body, what the body needs. Now, sodium and water reabsorption. Active transport reabsorbs about 70% of sodium ions. Sodium is huge for reabsorption. Okay, as the sodium ions move out of the tubule, their concentration of solutes within the peritubular blood increases. So then water moves across the cell membrane from regions of lesser solute concentration to areas of greater solute concentration, correct, to even it out. So if we have sodium going to one side, what's going to follow? The water, right? Okay. Water moves by osmosis. And basically, pretty much all of the sodium ions in water that enter renal tubular as part of filtrate, so all of the sodium in the water that's filtered in the first step, majority of it's reabsorbed in the second step. Okay. Approximately 20% of the plasma flowing through the kidneys is filtered, which means 80% escapes filtration and continues on through the peritubular capillaries. So only 20% of the blood that's entering the glomerulus is going to be filtered. The rest of the 80% is not filtered. It just continues on. Third step is tubular secretion. So we've created the filtrate, we reabsorbed, and now we're going to re-secrete. In this process, there are certain substances that move from the plasma back into the peritubular capillary, into the fluid of the renal tubule. So back into the urine filter. Okay? The epithelium of the proximal convoluted segment actively secretes the organic compounds into the fluid for excretion in urine. And some of the substances that may be excreted include penicillin, histamine, okay, hydrogen atoms, potassium ions, it just depends. Active transport mechanisms secrete these. These are not passive, these are active. Okay. And then at the end of the process you have urine. Now, we do have regulation of urine concentration and volume by two hormones. Aldosterone influences urine as well as antidiuretic hormones. Okay? They stimulate reabsorption of sodium and water. So if we look at aldosterone, it is secreted by the adrenal glands in response to changes in blood concentrations of sodium and potassium. Aldosterone signals a reabsorption of sodium and secretion of potassium. Now, that should be antidiuretic, not antidiuretic. I'm dyslexic at 2 in the morning, you know. So that should be antidiuretic hormone. Okay. Posterior pituitary releases in response to decreasing water concentration in the blood or decreasing blood volume. So what's a diuretic? Yeah. Okay. Makes you go to the bathroom, right? So it gets rid of fluid. So an antidiuretic is going to do what?
Conserve.
Conserve water. Okay? So ADH increases water permeability, and basically the urine volume falls, and soluble water and other substances become more concentrated. So we minimize the loss of fluids with an antidiuretic. Now, if body fluids have excess water, ADH secretion decreases. If we have excess water, we don't want to hold on to it. So secretion of antidiuretic is going to decrease because we're going to want to get rid of it. Okay. Urea excretion is a byproduct of amino acid catabolism. Okay. Plasma concentration reflects the amount of protein in the diet. It does enter by filtration, 80% is reabsorbed, and the remainder is excreted. Okay, And then uric acid is a byproduct of metabolism of certain organic bases. Small amount is secreted into the renal tubular and excreted in urine, about 10%. So when we're looking at what is the composition of urine, basically volumes of water and the amounts of solutes that the kidney must eliminate, okay, it's about 95% water with urea and uric acid. It differs from time to time, depending upon dietary intake and physical activity, but urine is mainly 95% water. Right, so if you're stuck on a desert island, drink your pee. Skin a steak, pee in it, and drink it. Does anybody want Bear Grylls?
I did.
Did you see that episode?
Yeah.
That was disgusting. Kill a snake, skinned it, peed in the snake skin, and then drank it.
How did it go into the snake?
Hold it. Right? Have you ever watched Bear Grylls?
Yeah, but think about it, I think it's because of it, right?
I don't know. My boyfriend tells me I need to watch this because I need to know how to survive, and I tell him, I will just die.
Yes, yes.
I don't care. I will just die. Curl up the ball and die. There are some trace amounts of amino acids and electrolytes. Concentrations, once again, are going to vary with your diet. Volume produced each day about 0.6 to 2.5 liters. Once again, depending on your fluid intake, environmental temperature, so how much you're sweating, things of that nature, humidity, your emotional condition, your respiratory rate, as well as your body temperature. Okay, about 50 to 60 milliliters per hour. That's average. Okay, so now the other structures that are composing the urinary system, ureters. So we know that urine forms in the nephrons. It's going to go into the collecting ducts. The ureter is what's going to take the urine that is produced from the kidneys and take it, transport it to the bladder where it's going to be stored for excretion. Okay, we do have two ureters. Okay, they are tubes that are 25 centimeters long. They begin as the renal pelvis. So they start in that renal pelvis, right, that flat part of the inside of the kidney, and they join the urinary bladder. Okay, their walls have 3 layers. We have the inner layer, which is the mucus coat, it's continuous with the linings of the renal tubulus and the bladder. Transitional epithelial cells, that's what it's constituted by, transitional epithelial cells. The middle coat is muscular, consists of smooth muscle. And then the outer coat is a fibrous coat, which is connective tissue. The muscular walls propel the urine with peristaltic waves. Okay, so project it, propel it forward. Flap-like folds of the mucous membrane cover the opening where the urine enters the bladder. Why would you want a flap on that opening?
So
So it
go
doesn't
back
come
up.
back. Okay? Don't want it to come back. Once it's in there, that's where you want it to stay. Okay, so the folds act as valves. Kind of like when we talked about valves in the veins, how it prevents blood backflow, right? Same thing. You don't want to have urine coming back up. Okay? That would be bad. So it allows the urine to leave, does not allow, or allows it to enter, does not allow it to leave. Now, the bladder is hollow, distensible, it's a muscular organ. In the pelvic cavity, obviously its main job is to store urine, okay, and then it's going to force it into the urethra for exiting the body. Located in the pelvic cavity behind the symphysis pubis and beneath the parietal peritoneum. Okay, when empty, the inner walls have many folds. Okay, now when the walls with urine, what's going to happen to the walls? They're going to expand. So they become very smooth. Okay, and the superior surface forms into a dome. Okay. The floor includes a triangular area. Trigone has an opening at each of its 3 angles. Posteriorly, the openings are those of the ureters that are coming in. okay, bringing the urine in. Anteriorly, it's the opening into the urethra for expelling the urine. It's basically a funnel-shaped extension. The urethra is a funnel-shaped extension called the neck of the bladder. Kind of think like a funnel that you would use in like cooking. Okay, probably shouldn't have used cooking with urine, but that's the only thing I can think of at the moment. So there are 4 layers within the bladder. The walls, we have the mucus coat, which is the inner layer. Okay, transitional epithelial cells. Who remembers what those mean without reading the next line? Remember we talked about transitional cells? Yeah, so they expand. Their thickness changes, okay, as the walls expand and contract. Okay, so they transition from being thick to more compact. Okay. The second layer is the submucous coat, connective tissue, elastic fibers. The full mucus coat is the third layer, so coarse bundles of smooth muscle fibers. Okay. The bundles are interlaced in all directions and at all depths, and they comprise the detrusor muscle, and the part of the muscle surrounding the neck of the bladder forms the internal urethral sphincter. Basically, sustained contraction of the muscle prevents the bladder from emptying until there is enough pressure that reaches the threshold. You wouldn't want the muscle to relax just whenever it wanted to. Okay? So it does stay contracted and it prevents the bladder from emptying until there's a certain threshold. And then at that point you don't have control over it, as it's filling, but then you feel like you have to go to the bathroom, right? So you have then conscious control over that. Alright? So now if it gets to a point if you don't go to the bathroom, then eventually you're going to do things. Which, would not be fun, but you do have control to some certain extent. The fourth layer is the serous coat, consists of parietal peritoneum only on the bladder's upper surface. So elsewhere, the outer coat is a connective tissue. So only on the upper part where the dome is. This is a picture of the urinary bladder in male. It's a little bit different in female. I think the book has a picture of it, but this is male. Okay. Micturition is the same as urination. Okay, that's the term for urination. So I'm assuming most of us know what urination is. Getting urine out from the bladder. The detrusor muscle and muscles in the abdominal wall and the pelvic floor contract to allow this to happen. It does require relaxation of the external urethral sphincter. Okay, this is composed of voluntary skeletal muscle tissue. So this is the part that you control. So you do reach a point where the detrusor muscle it wants to contract or it wants to relax so that you can go to the bathroom, but you have control over that. You can prevent yourself from going back until you get there. And that requires the relaxation of the external urethral sphincter. Okay? Distension of the bladder wall stimulates stretch receptors and it triggers the reflex, the urge to go to the bathroom. Okay? Sensory impulses from the stretch receptor signal the reflex center, and the parasympathetic motor impulse travels to the detrusor muscle, which is going to contract rhythmically. In response, the urinary bladder can hold up as much as 600 milliliters. At that point, though, pain is going to come in. You will be in pain. Remember, every sense receptor is a pain receptor. Has anyone ever held and had they're like in pain? You thought you were going to die because you had to go to the bathroom so bad? Yeah. Okay, yeah. That happened to me last weekend. In case anybody wanted to know.
Traveling?
What?
Traveling?
No, we were going to take the deer to the processing plant. Freaking no place in wherever the hell we were had indoor fucking plumbing, and I wasn't using the porta potty. Like, where the hell are we going? Oh, we gotta go up to Rome, the best processing plant in Michigan. Great. Eat. Great. All right. Anyways, I made it to a McDonald's. My only saving grace is Ronald is in every freaking area of the country, so. Okay. Don't go to Jerome. There's no indoor plumbing. And then the urge to urinate or go to the bathroom begins when you're at 150 milliliters. So think about that. You can hold up to 600, and that's where pain starts, but you have to go at 150. That's a lot. That's uncomfortable. I was already crying and killed Bambi. Really? Bambi's dad, actually. Bambi's dad.
Saved penis.
Don't ever watch them scalp a deer.
Ew.
Or skin it. I made a bad decision looking in the rearview mirror, and I was just like, oh my god. Okay, when the contractions become strong enough, okay, the internal urethral sphincter is going to open. Obviously, it's going to signal to relax the bladder so that it's empty. Okay, the external urethral sphincter is under conscious control, so it's usually contracted until you decide to go to the bathroom. Then you're going to relax, and obviously, you will then go to the bathroom. After that fact, the detrusor muscle relaxes, urinary bladder then can begin to fill again. Okay. Now, the urethra is what actually empties the urine outside the body from the bladder. The walls are lined with mucous membranes, thick layer of smooth muscle tissue. Okay. It contains an abundance of mucus glands, urethral glands. They secrete mucus into the urethral canal. And obviously in the female, the opening is anterior to the vaginal opening and posterior to the clitoris. In the male, basically bladder. Get excited for the reproductive chapter. Okay, so that's urination. Now, I'm going to give us about a 10-minute break, and then we're going to talk about water, electrolyte, and acid-base balance.
After all that, we all have to go to the bathroom.
And we'll carry on. Go back.
Yes.